Cool. All right, well, thanks everybody for joining another episode of the OpenJS Foundation's Cross Project Council meeting. Today is the 17th of August, and we'll get right into things. Yeah, don't forget to add yourself to the meeting notes, and if anybody helps with meeting notes, that's always greatly appreciated. You get a little something extra with the holiday gifts and whatnot. Where am I looking for here? Oh yeah, the recording. Yeah, so do we have any announcements or anything before we get into our agenda?
After today's CPC meeting, we have a marketing committee meeting for those who want to hop on and help us think generally about marketing. Rachel could probably dive into the agenda. We're also excitedly kind of thinking about the OpenJS World event. That's a topic that we'll cover in both the marketing call and in our biweekly programming committee calls. So again, for those who are interested in helping with the event specifically, join us for those calls, or if you want to help kind of promote either case studies or not AMAs, because we don't call it that anymore, or things of that sort, on the marketing side. That meeting is later. Rachel, do you have anything you want to add on that front?
Nope, you covered it. Just hope to see you there.
Great. I don't think I'm going to be able to make it, but I encourage others to. It's a fun bunch.
One other quick request from OpenJSF Ops. If your project is still using the JS Foundation CLA infrastructure and you're interested in moving over to in keeping your CLA and you want to move over to the Easycla system, please let me know. You can Slack me or whatever, but we're trying to programmatically roll that out because we're certainly running into issues with that bot, the old JSF bot. So let me know if you're interested in that.
Is there any update on the DCO stuff?
I think we have this as the perennial issue, but so I'm happy to cover this when we get to the agenda item. Yes and no is the answer.
And Jory, book club Thursday.
Oh, book club. Oh, thank you. Yeah, so book club is this Thursday at 3 p.m. If you're interested in dialing in, you obviously don't have to have read the book. I mean, that's part of the joy of a book club, is that like maybe 20% have actually read the book. There's some great like YouTube summaries of the books if you want to go watch those. But we're talking about a book called How to Do Nothing, which speaks to me and my inner sloth. And then also a book called Braiding Sweetgrass, which is a very interesting book by an ecological scientist that has a lot of like useful translations to like open source and sustainability. And so really excited about talking about those books. So join us on Thursday if you would like.
Cool. Anything else? Any other like announcements or project related stuff or anything else to share? Node.js had some security releases, right? That's a good thing. If you're using Node, check that out. Cool. If there's nothing else, we can get into the agenda. The first item is pull request 789, and Toby started this. It's a work in progress, so I think if anybody else wants to add stuff in there, we can certainly merge this and continue to work on it. But I think it would be great if anybody wanted to throw some more in there that they can, if they have a moment. Anything else on this? Toby, do you want to comment or anything?
Yeah, that was just in response. There was an open issue on the topic, and I just started working on it, and then ran out of time. So that's why I opened it that way. It's a bit, essentially the issue was we don't really know what the CPC is working on, and there's more clearly, like there's a lot of policy documents in the root of the CPC directory, and this is not obvious to newcomers or people that are doing stuff. And so can we have a list of those somewhere? And so I started working on those, and I'm doing such a list. And they're not sort of super easy to categorize, right? So that's like if you know, like I think it would be helpful to sort of like have people think about how to break them down in a way that makes it sort of like easier to digest.
Mhm. Yeah, that makes sense. All right. Well, yeah, we'll leave it open for now, and people can suggest other things in the pull request. We'll see how it's looking next meeting and go from there.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm going to try to find some time to finish it at some point.
Okay, great. Thank you for that effort. Cool. Moving on, the next item is issue 786. This is clarify requirements around COC violation. Let me promote Divya here if I can. Come on, Zoom. There we go. Yeah, and then Jordan has a good comment here. I mean, so it's brief, but Toby says there are no requirements beyond adopting the Foundation's code of conduct for projects. It seems we would need additional requirements for projects who wish to handle code of conduct violations themselves. For example, having a clear process for raising a violation, certain guarantees around privacy, etc. And Jordan says if a project doesn't have those things, I would argue that it doesn't actually have a code of conduct, policy. I agree.
To be clear, that doesn't mean we shouldn't make it more clear, like
Yeah.
in case someone's confused, but like it does seem implicit to me.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
And just for context, I think this was a follow-up from a conversation we had 2 weeks ago where we wanted to open such an issue, which is why I opened it.
Yeah.
So maybe I should make that clear in the issue.
Sure, that makes sense. I think this also perhaps relates to the another agenda item around contact information around code of conduct stuff, right? So I don't know if we want to link those issues.
I'll do some issue linking while we talk.
Yeah, I mean, what do we think are good steps for this?
So I think one easy one is that we require them to add, as particularly for the new projects that we onboard, we can go back and retroactively get this for the old projects. Their reporting method, if it's a form that they maintain or some other list that they maintain because they have the community support to do so. That's obviously something the projects can choose, or if they wish also to delegate that to our cross-project group, that's fine, but they need to proactively make that choice and register that choice with us as part of onboarding.
So reporting method you mentioned. I'm not sure if I missed any other bullet points from that. But Toby also mentions, privacy.
Yeah, probably retention, right, and privacy.
I'm just trying to take a couple of notes here that I can add to this issue. Anything else? Escalation or anything?
I think, escalation, but also one thing that would be great for the future, not necessarily from day one, but would be some kind of just baseline training that, we can say, hey, everybody who's on the lists for reporting for any of our projects has taken, some session that we've designated as a baseline.
Is a requirement?
Yeah, as a requirement for, again, I'm hence saying for the future, because we've got a lot of people who are
Yeah.
currently helpful in serving these roles today that we don't want to bump out, but, say over some period of time, the next year, we get folks all taking the same session. That'd be useful, I think.
As a extension to that, do you expect that everyone will or each project will, if there's something a project disagrees with in that session about how something should be handled, will the projects be expected to precisely uphold whatever is taught in that session?
Have never known that expectation to be the case for any class that I have ever
Okay.
taken, so I can't imagine. That's my opinion, man.
Okay. No, I want to, I largely bring that up for the case where I've done trainings like this and they are, they have been misinformed and they have been harmful sometimes, and the groups that end up taking them modify what is taught to be more strict or more inclusive, and so that's why I'm bringing that up. Also, doesn't the foundation still, I would hope that we didn't lose this. The Node Foundation paid a lot of money for some training that Tracy Hines helped get set up. And then we in perpetuity had rights to that training. This was for the node moderation team. It was conflict resolution, I think. Do we still have that?
I'm not
I-
aware.
I have
Okay.
not heard of it, but I think I know where I can find out and get it from.
Yeah, I'd love to make sure that if
Updated content, yeah. Okay.
if we do still have access to that, making that available to all foundation projects, and because that was the scope of it, was have anyone be able to have access to it. I think we paid 5 figures for it, and then $300 or something to retain it permanently. It'd be nice if we could figure that out and
Okay.
resurface that.
Yeah, I remember that too. Toby, you had your hand up first, I think.
Yeah, but I totally forgot what for at this point. So
All right.
if Sarah can go and I can sort of figure it out
Yeah.
in the meantime, that would be really useful.
Yeah.
Great, hopefully I'll make you think of it.
Yeah.
I wanted to say, it sounds like there's a real opportunity to, if we think about the foundation's role here as a central org, I wonder if, as we talk about the individual COC groups of the projects, if we could ask for some either transparency or provide some transparency up or down, because it seems like there's a real opportunity to have very different, the code of conduct can be standard, but the decisions made by the projects could be very different. And maybe that's fine with us. Maybe we're not here to dictate, who should be kicked out and who shouldn't. The .NET Foundation recently ran into, I don't know if anyone saw this, an issue where they have a new central code of conduct group, and they have made the call that if a group, if someone is removed from one project in the foundation, they're removed from every project permanently in perpetuity associated with the foundation. Now, those are, I think that is in an opinionless. I'm not saying that this is something that we should do. However, and maybe I'm trying to solve future problems that haven't happened yet, but there seems like as a central org, an opportunity to provide guidance here, which is what we're talking about, but also maybe, I don't know if there's a world where we provide some some transparency or ask for transparency codes so we can standardize decision making is really the problem I'm trying to solve. Where like if we consider something a COC violation, but a project doesn't, what does that look like? Just adding more work is what I'm doing.
So
So-
quickly to respond,
Oh.
I want to respond to Sarah really quick because she's bringing something up, which is a great point, but it's also in sort of, it relates to a decision that this group specifically made, which was not to standardize that process because projects like Node would rather have that agency and assurance that a decision or an issue made by another COC moderation group did not affect their project. And so there was a desire for more autonomy over uniformity from the projects on that particular thing. And if that's changed by the projects, then by all means we can change it. But I'm just pointing out that that was a explicit decision that I know that Node, for example, have felt very strongly about.
Toby?
Yeah, so that was the third point I was going to bring up too. Thanks for. I remember vividly this conversation in Montreal, and some people were very keen on making sure that we didn't cross a line here, and I think this is something we want to be careful about. Yeah, and the last conversation we had, and this is going back to the list you were making, Joe. Tierney suggested that every project should have a sort of a dedicated mailing list at which to email a code of conduct violation rather than personal emails. And if we go down that route, I'd like to add to that then sort of like a following problem related to that is if you don't know who's the recipient of your email, and it's potentially the person that you actually want to file something against, that can be problematic too. So maybe having some guidance around that would be useful too. And lastly, I wanted to point out that I've actually taken 2, I think, of the Linux Foundation courses to assess them on diversity and inclusion. And the second one in particular, I thought was quite good and frankly, surprisingly up to date in terms of the kinds of questions that people that care about these issues are aware today. So I actually recommend the second one. I think it's the Diversity and Inclusion 102. And it's free. And if you all want to go have a look at it, like it was a good course, and I'm usually very critical of stuff in general. So I mean this, it's like it was good. The first one wasn't as good.
Great, thank you. Emily, you had your hand up, you took it down, you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, great.
The point I would have made was covered by others.
Okay. Yeah, and I know there's a couple of comments in the chat. I don't know if Tierney or Rich or Jory, anyone wants to open it up to the group or anything. I'm trying to take notes too here.
I'm happy to. I'm also happy to have this out of band if we want. I don't want to like derail on this if it is derailing.
So is this specifically around the autonomy versus?
Yeah, this is.
Yeah. So I think the more useful kind of step there might be for Node and Electron and any of the projects, AMP, et cetera, to kind of have the conversation with their groups about what concerns they would have if we did adopt a more uniform approach. And, because there's obviously differences of opinion even within projects. So
I can at least speak a bit to what Electron's concerns are, and my recollection, I could be wrong. This has been a discussion for years, so I might have been representing ComCom at some point, but I've never been in this. I've been in the CPC as a regular member for Node, but not ever as a voting member. One of the primary concerns that Electron has, and this was something that we started raising when we were doing onboarding, is a situation in which how things are previously worded, basically people could escalate a COC decision to the CPC and or whatever mechanism the CPC creates, and that could then like it was written in a way in which a decision could be made that overrode the project's decision to ban someone or block someone, which to me is completely unacceptable. That mechanism should never exist. If a project decides to block someone, they should be blocked, and that's the end of story. So yeah, that was largely where my concern was previously. In the inverse situation where like the foundation is providing basically a block list, which I know we've talked about has repercussions that I'm not addressing right now. I think that's fine. I think projects should be able to choose to opt into that, but I'm also not, I don't have a hard decision about that. There is, the problem of, well, if someone who's a maintainer comes and is shitty in my project, and then everyone's enforced on the block list, they get blocked from their own project. What's that situation? Because like I've had maintainers who I've blocked personally, and I believe there's been action taken against maintainers in the past as well. So that's a very hard situation that I honestly don't know if we have the time and energy to solve. So yeah, that's it.
All right. Well, all good points, and I think things to, further consider. But maybe we should time box this, maybe put some of these notes into that issue in particular. Some of the ideas that we may expect from projects, and we can discuss it further in the issue or further in a CPC meeting, or maybe even a working session. Toby, do you have your hand up again, or is that?
Yeah, I just think that there's like a broad conversation that we can have, but also there could be some minimum requirements that we could probably all agree to early on, and that we probably should focus on those first. And then if we want to have a broader conversation, have that separately in like a workshop session, whatever it is. I don't think we need to solve the MVP, the minimum one today, but I think that's what we should focus on in this issue, at least, because that was what the requirement was and what the issue was open for.
Okay, I think that makes sense. Can I ask you, Toby, to grab that little bit from the notes and maybe just drop kind of what you said into the issue?
Sure, I'll do that right now.
Okay, thank you. All right, great. Moving on. Let me see, get back to where I am here. Kickoff election process for secondary CPC director. This I was looking at earlier. So yeah, this is the second meeting. So thinking about the timeline, we opened it up a meeting ago. This meeting, I think we would say at the end of today, we would close nominations and then open up the election process. And I can say that I have more than one person who has reached out to me. So, an election is forthcoming. So I guess this is maybe an opportunity to remind folks, if they are interested in this secondary CPC director role, to reach out to me and let me know. And at the end of the day today, or first thing tomorrow morning, I can announce the nominees and we can move forward. Does that sound right to folks? Then the election will be open for 2 weeks, closing, at the end of the next CPC meeting day, I think is August 31st, according to the issue, checking my notes. Yep. Which I think is actually perfect in terms of timing. I think Michael opened this up right on time. So great. Anything else on this one from folks? If not, I will move it along. I guess I will ask, should we do any sort of, last pings anywhere and Slack and an email, anything? I mean, we're talking about, before tomorrow morning. So not a lot of time, but does anybody have any thoughts around that? We're live on YouTube. I know everybody watches that.
Doesn't
Sorry.
hurt to just add it to general, or, as the last,
Yep.
last call.
Okay. Would anyone like to just drop that in there real quickly?
I could do that real quick.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next item is a pull request 782. This is maybe the one we're kind of referencing before. Toby opened this. Thank you again. Closes a couple issues and kind of adds, clarifies some of the reporting destinations. I don't know what the word is I'm looking for. Toby, do you want to comment, or anybody have any comments on this pull request?
So I just want to share that, mention that this needs board approval because it changes the charter to clarify the role of the CPC.
Okay, let's add that label. You already got it.
I've
Great.
added it.
Great, thank you. Excellent. So that's, I don't know, let me look at Zoom here. Sarah is already gone? Yeah. All right, well, maybe Robin, you can take it to the board, or we can mention it.
I can take it to the board for sure.
Excellent, thank you. Wow, how did Emily get sideways? Oh, there he goes. That was weird. Cool. So yeah, I encourage folks to take a look at this. I think it makes sense. It sort of goes a little bit along with the previous conversation we had. But definitely take a look and see if you have any thoughts. Cool. Moving on. This is issue 772. This is the CPC chairperson election. It looks like this is closable, and I will continue doing this thing that I'm doing. Any objections? I don't know if you can object now, but
It doesn't work that way. Right?
It's too late to object. Congratulations.
thank you.
Hey.
Cool. Happy to do it, and hoping that I have even more time to do it. Been busy lately, but anyway, great. Thank you. Where did it go? Actually, let me just close it. I'm gonna have to say thanks, y'all. Cool. Moving on. This is issue 761. Toby, this is build stronger ties between at-large maintainers and their CPC reps. It looks like maybe, I think your last comment, Toby, has some good ideas there. And we just need to kind of act on them, at least as an initial first step.
Yeah, actually, I don't remember why I added this to the agenda. I don't know why I did this, but anyway, I did this to myself, I guess. Yeah, I think we wanted to do again a really small first step to actually get something done, because we're already halfway through the year or more. And the idea was just to create a Slack channel to have at-large maintainers and the representatives have a communication channel. This was sort of like the direction in which I was suggesting we could start. Just wanted to make sure that people were okay with this, and have the folks representing at-large maintainers join this. And if we could actually invite those people, the maintainers, into that channel. I don't know if we actually have enough information to do that. And that was it, really.
So just as a FYI, you can create the public channel, and that's a.
I'm about to do it.
Okay, and then I'm happy to add folks to that channel, but it'll be a public channel, so anybody can join. So
Yeah.
Cool.
And I just invited you, Toby, and we can go from there.
That's wonderful.
Please invite me as well.
Roger that.
And I guess Michael too.
Yep, I'm on it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Isn't in what? Yeah, okay. I think I did that correctly. Great. Oh, invite them as well. Great. All right, cool. So that's a start. Those folks are invited. And then, yeah, Jory, if you can maybe ping project maintainers and let them know about it, and we can start kind of having some stuff happen there and, grow this effort from there. I will ask, do we keep this issue open? Do we close it until we, maybe once Jory invites folks, we can close it and then open subsequent issues from there. Does that make sense? Okay. Great. All right. Excellent. Moving on, the next one is issue 758. There's no, as far as I know, there's no progress on this. And I say that because it's something that I wanted to work on, but have not been able to yet. This is reminders for long-term events. In essence, some like GitHub actions that would create issues for things like elections and whatnot. So I think we're using this issue to drop in things that would be good for this sort of tooling. So definitely, if you think of anything that's not here, drop it in. And if anybody wants to work on this, that would be great. But beyond that, I'll try to get to it as soon as I can. Cool. Anything else on this? I know, Tierney, you had mentioned something in some, I think, Slack messages that was perhaps related, but I don't know if it's anything.
I can't recall offhand.
It was code spaces and gists.
Oh yeah.
It's maybe more related to meeting stuff.
It's more related to meeting stuff. It's potentially coming, but I don't know if it's actually coming. So I don't want to get people's hopes up and then have it not come. So
all right, makes sense. Cool. Well, I will still look at this stuff as soon as I can. Moving on, the create proposal for or proposals for the community fund. This is issue 756. Robin dropped a comment in less than a day ago with a doc around the LIFT scholarships for Node.js training and certification. Folks haven't checked it out, please do so. There's a doc there. Thank you, Robin, for sharing.
Yep, no problem. It really sort of details what we've been talking about, frames, how we would describe the LIFT scholarship. And there is, Rachel has a much more detailed document, for example, on how this will be rolled out. We'd like to launch it September 6th, leave it open for 30 days. And then depending on the number we get in, it could be like 2 to 4 weeks to review all of those and make an award. I also have been working with some other folks just on all of the detailed questions and working with the Linux Foundation on all of those sort of requirements, legalese and things like that. So for example, you have to be over 18 and things like that. So.
Great, thank you to all of you for putting that together. It's a short read. If anybody, it's like less than a page. So I encourage folks to take a peek at it and comment if you have any questions or thoughts or whatnot. Cool. And then finally on the list is the DCO thing that we mentioned earlier. Jory, do you want to chime in on this? This is issue 632, provide implementation guidance for DCO/CLA.
Yeah, so just chiming in on behalf of Brian and to update everybody. So Probot DCO is the bot that we have been working on with the Probot team for quite some time to make the changes necessary to make it easier for people of all skill levels to easily sign or agree to the DCO. We have submitted those changes. We're waiting for someone from the Probot DCO team to agree to merge it in. Unfortunately, they're also looking at, they're looking for someone to take on ownership of that bot. So they're reticent to accept our code because they're not going to they're not planning to maintain it. And so the question to us has been, would we, the foundation, like to take on that responsibility? And if so, are there perhaps people in our org that would be willing to help co-maintain it? Because that's not something that, say, Brian, for example, could do alone. So that's kind of where we're at in this sort of like dance, I suppose. We're a little stuck, but that's the situation on the DCO bot. As far as the CLA goes, we do encourage projects that are currently using the JS Foundation CLA Assistant bot to migrate to Easycla, and we're working on documentation and easy process for migration for projects like Webpack at the moment. And I know some others have raised their hand to say we want to move to, and hopefully that can happen fairly quickly once we have everybody kind of aware of what that process will look like, so that there's no surprises. But in any case, if you're interested and ready to move to the OpenJS Foundation CLA, let us know and we'll work with you to get Easycla turned on.
Do people have any thoughts about taking on the DCO project?
Do we have a good sense of like how much the project is used elsewhere, and what does the maintaining requirement is? Oh, okay. Well, Tierney's okay. Well, that answers my question. Like, if this isn't like a large project that is very much used like in lots of different areas, then we probably, it's a different conversation than if like we're, would be like the only one still using that thing.
Yeah, if it's used a lot, and particularly outside of our sort of ecosystem and community, however we define that specifically, but is it something the Linux Foundation should consider? Or
Is there a link anywhere to, like, Jory, to where they've talked about not wanting to invest in it any further?
Yeah, I'll dig that up and put that in the notes here. Give me 2 shakes.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say they're saying they're not going to invest. They're just looking for help is the issue, because they're.
Is that what it is? Okay, so they're not trying to give up on Probot.
No, they're just,
can't
they don't
handle
have
it
the
on their
bandwidth.
own.
They need additional help. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, open source.
Is it JavaScript at least?
It is? Is that what you said?
Is it?
But my question is the bot itself at least written in JavaScript?
It is.
That's cool.
I think we should focus on getting the things that we care about maintained. I'm sorry to be the thing emerged. I'm sorry to be so sort of like down to earth, and if it's a large project, that it doesn't make sense for us to be considering the maintenance question, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't call it a large project, but it's a non-trivial project. Like it's not at the scale of something like, Electron or Node or AMP or something like that, but it's a project that has users and is a responsibility. And I agree with Toby that I don't think we're in a spot where we can say we're going to take that on. Now, if people step up and to maintain it and want to bring it into the foundation, I'm fine with that. But I don't think we should actively take on that maintenance.
However, we should try to figure out how to solve our problem of getting the thing that we care about merged in. And we could focus on figuring out how to help doing just that.
Is this the DCO Probot repo, or are you talking about all of Probot? Because those are 2 different things.
Right. This is just the DCO, and here is just as it for those who want to follow along with the long conversation. That's Brian's original PR from quite some time ago, which includes, basically Probot DCO is a great bot, and the change we want to see is one which would make it easier for us to do remediation commits and make that, again, something that's more accessible to folks who aren't as experienced with Git and may run into issues.
Also for context, like, okay, this, I didn't realize that I thought you were talking about Probot period. I didn't realize you were talking
Me
about
too.
the DCO repo.
Yeah, just the DCO.
Greg, this is very doable. Gregor has, yeah, this is that completely changes how I've thought about it. I think
Yeah,
about this.
sorry if I misspoke. I'm just
Likewise.
talking about DCO, not all of Probot, for sure.
Yeah, I agree, and I also think that this is a reasonable ask for the Linux Foundation to take on, if that's something that you'd be willing to do. You could talk to, because, like, yeah, isn't the DCO like maintained by the Linux Foundation or something, or it comes from Linux, right?
Well, in the sense that I think the Linux kernel is the project which popularized the DCO. Yes, in that sense.
Gotcha.
I don't think that the Linux Foundation owns the text of the DCO.
The developer certificate.org is copyright the Linux Foundation.
Okay.
So yeah, I think as the OpenJS Foundation, I'd like to ask that we ask the Linux Foundation to take this on. I think that's potentially a reasonable ask.
I'm a little confused about the state of the pull request. That said, I mean, that's a separate conversation, but like it's also something to better understand what's going on before actually, I think, suggesting taking it over.
And I see Gregor's comment is pretty early on in the process here. Changes look good to me overall. I'm just concerned that it adds quite some complexity. I'm worried about the maintenance of the app. As you use the app at the Linux Foundation, I wonder if you or someone else from your teams could help out maintaining DCO and especially the advanced features added by this PR.
So, I mean, this is something we can follow up with, internally and see if there is capacity at the LF writ large to support, maybe by, but that's a different question than, is this community interested in maintaining the project? So either way, though, like those are,
I mean,
asks.
I think also, like, reading that specifically, it's largely not taking over the project, but maintaining the features that Brian's adding here, which is an additionally different question. Yeah. I think we might want to revisit this one with that more precise context, because we've taken a lot of time on this.
Well, it's the last issue.
Oh, okay.
And we only have 10 minutes left. So, I mean, I generally agree with what you said, though, Trini. Let me double check the agenda. Yep, last issue. Although next week we're supporting the Nebraska projects in the working session. Let me just touch on that real quickly.
Yeah, so the last working session that we have a topic identified for is next week, August 24th. And we named this session Supporting the Nebraska Projects, with Nebraska being a reference to an XKCD comic about small projects with big impact on the ecosystem. Yeah. So that comes specifically out of an extension of our conversation around like technical strategy and supporting projects of varying shapes and sizes at the foundation. So that for the next call, we're going to talk about like the smaller projects specifically. I will create an agenda and post an issue for this meeting. We don't have any working session topics identified for the remainder of August or September. So I'd love to hear what topics you may want to tackle in upcoming working sessions. It sounds like we could obviously do another working session on the code of conduct, or do a working session on the community fund. It seemed like great topics, but that's merely suggestions.
Tech strategy is always one that we can continue to, workshop in terms of, other projects and what sort of, I don't think coverage is the right word I'm looking for here, but what it is we have and what we think we should be thinking about.
Okay, so tech strategy, anything else?
Not offhand.
We could do one specifically for parties interested in the Easycla, just as an informative, kind of.
A working session on not just for the CPC, but for projects in general, to actually do the work of transiting to the new CLA bot.
That seems like a good idea. Obviously, let me know if you think of others. We'll add it to the list.
Great. All right, cool. We have 7 minutes left. Did we want to double back on any of those things or the DCO further? I see your comment there, Tierney, asking Gregor if code owners for those specific features. Can see what he says.
Yeah, I mean, if it's like, this 100 lines of code or whatever that he's asking for support on, I think that's a reasonable request. Like, I think most of the projects here would also request that if it's like a feature that's kind of outside of the scope, but still is accepted. I think that that's a reasonable request. And I think that if we want this merged, we should be willing to do that. So this is like significantly narrowed the scope of my feelings about this. And I think that this, largely with that question, I just want to know what he's looking for in that. So yeah, I think it's fine though. I think this is a reasonable request. I think if we are making this request, we should be willing to put someone forward to do it. So whether that's finding someone in the CPC or a member project or whatever, but finding someone that's willing to maintain this is probably something we should do if we're asking for it.
Yeah, I agree. Tierney, would you mind kind of just summarizing that very briefly in our issue? And just when we come back to it, we know. And we can see what Gregor says in the meantime. Cool. Anything else that anybody wants to touch on before we call it a wrap, or what do we want to do? All right. Yeah, I guess we'll just call it then. I appreciate everybody showing up and doing the work here and in between meetings. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Adios.
Thanks, everyone.
Adios. You want to cancel us on YouTube?
Yep, we'll do.
Cool.